left to right, Russell Westbrook.
You love the Philadelphia Eagles. Let me get a hell yeah!
What's going on, guys? What's happening? It is Dibes, Mr. Crockpot on Twitter. Welcome to Party on Broad. Joining us today is our co-host, Jack. You know him on Twitter at JackConnellTPL. What's going on, Jack?
Nothing much. It's a great day. Really excited to have Spike on. I was kind of talking before. Spike and the Ricky podcast really got me into Sixers fandom on that today, so I'm really excited to have him on. Talk some Ricky, talk some Sixers, all that fun stuff.
Special guest today, one of the pioneers of Sixers podcasting. He is the host of the Rice to Ricky Sanchez podcast, the host of the Art of the Take podcast, the program director of 94 WIP. Follow Spike on Twitter. I'm sure if you're watching this, you already do. At Spike Eskin. Dude, it's a fucking honor, man. Thanks for joining.
Nobody told me this is video. This whole thing is video, or does this come out, or does you just release the audio? The video is goes out.
We do both,
video.
Oh, I would have looked better. Thank you guys for thanks for having me. It's a weird time, and I think people are starting to talk to each other more this way. So it seems like the video chat is. Assuming that this thing never goes away and this is the rest of our lives, I guess this is how we'll connect from now on.
Crazy times, man. Crazy times. Yeah. I've pretty much obliterated everything on Disney Plus. There's not enough Avengers or Star Wars shit out there for me. I'm out of like shit to watch. We just finished Ozark. We're going to start Hunters. Is there anything? How's quarantine life going for you, Spike? What's going on with that?
Well, it's different for me because I still am at work because I actually manage 2 radio stations here, and the thing about what has gone on is that so we just moved into these new studios at the middle of January, end of January, so it still wasn't completely set up here when all of this stuff happened. So making sure that we are able to run the radio station without like people for a brief time if we need to, depending on what happens, or if we have to move to another site. So it's really just the hosts that are left here, the producers, and me. Oh no, we lost Jack.
He'll be back.
Okay, all right. So it's been my life is not like too much different because I don't really go out or anything anyway, so just the fear of being around people and even in the city, like it's different suburbs because there's so much space around you, especially if you have like a single family house. But when you're in the city, there's just people everywhere and there's doorknobs everywhere and people breathing everywhere, so that part's been crazy. So and I don't really like watch TV shows very much. Okay. So I haven't like really binged anything because my time has been exactly the same. The only thing that I've gotten back has been Sixers games, and I choose to like enjoy not watching anything during that time. Yeah. So it hasn't been too different for me. Right. What about you guys?
For me, so I'm lucky enough that I have a flexible job. I can work from home. So I have a 7-month-old daughter. So that's been keeping me busy. But going pretty crazy. What about you, Jack? How's quarantine life for you, man?
I mean, I've been out of school last week. I'll be out of school this week. I'm in college. I'm about to be online for the rest of the semester, so that'll be weird. Been playing some Batman, watching my regular stuff. Just kind of just feel like I'm 12 again, really, just sitting in the video games. Like, I work at a restaurant. So, my work's shut down until like the middle of April, so I really don't have much going on.
Yeah.
All right. So we're today on tap for today. We're gonna reminisce some Ricky events. We're gonna talk some Sixer shit. But I thought we should start off, man. I don't think people realize enough just how much you do for the community, for others, for workers. Flip the Switch is gonna be replaced with a 5-hour live Ricky stream. Dude, do you want to just like talk a little bit about it?
Yeah. So this was our first year without the lottery party, and it was sort of a relief because the lottery party became pretty stressful toward the end because with the Sixers playing around it, and they lost right before it twice, like they lost in the playoffs, it sort of sucked the air out of it. So last year was the last year of the lottery party, but we wanted to replace it with something, because the lottery party, the how many did we do? Did we do 5? The last 4 were all for charity. And like the last 2 or 3 years, we had raised almost 20 grand each year for our 2 charities. So we wanted to be able to replace it. So Flip the Switch was going to replace it to benefit the Providence Animal Center and Coded by Kids. And now that we had to get rid of it, it was sort of a relief to not have to plan the show, because it's a lot for me. But then it started to hit, not just with the charities we deal with, but with our sponsors, who are mostly local small business sponsors, how much this crushes them. And especially Providence Animal Center, like, shelters make a lot of their money doing events. That's how they raise money, whether it's a 5K or a gala, or even just a happy hour at a bar where the bar donates 20%. They can't do any of those things. So I suggested to Mike, as he is as bored as he's ever been, I think, that we do a 5-hour webcast on Zoom, and we have all of our sponsors on, and we have the charities on, and we have all the people that work for us. So Underberger and Sixers Adam and Abby, and have everybody on, and try to get some special guests and do it for 5 hours. Print up merch. We're making merch that we'll have for sale, and have donations, and try to raise $15,000 that way. So that is Sunday on Zoom, and the info is on our website. So it should be fun. We've never done a live streaming thing on the internet before. Like, as long as we've done podcasts, we've never done a live thing. We've never done a video thing before. So that should be fun. And so it's funny, everybody's using Zoom, but if you just use the Zoom rooms, it's like free, or it's $20 a month. But if you do a seminar where people watch you and don't talk, like a lot of people, it gets pretty expensive. And it was like $2,000, like $2,500. And DraftKings agreed to pay for it. So they're paying for it. DraftKings Sportsbook is paying for it, so we can donate all the money to the charity. So I thought that was really cool too. Like the one sponsor we have that isn't a small local sponsor is even chipping in and paying for it. So that'll be Sunday. So I'm looking forward to it. 5 hours is a long time. Like, we've been talking for 5 minutes, and it seems like a long time. So 5 hours is a little scary, but I'm sure we'll get through it.
You read 5-star reviews for like 3 or 4 hours before. I'm sure you got it.
And that was terrible. And that was that was one of the worst experiences of my life. So yeah, I'm not 5 hours is really long, and I'm gonna have to do it here at work, because I want to make sure that the internet is super stable, because if we're recording a podcast, the internet goes down, we can figure it out, we can use phones. We can't do that with this. So 5 hours sitting in a room like this, talking to Mike, Jesus Christ, 5 hours. Yeah, so that's Sunday.
Awesome. Can't wait. Lead us off, Jack.
So, I mean, this free time is kind of less, some more time to read, explore some other stuff. So recently, Tanking to the Top just came out, the new book. You have a whole chapter. The Ricky is a whole chapter. What was that whole process like? And reached out to kind of just, how's it feel to have your history forever like cemented in the writing?
It's pretty neat to see our name as a chapter, and then after we get introduced in that chapter, Yaron uses us as sort of almost narrators. There's quotes from us in each chapter afterwards. It's pretty neat. I'll tell you that the process, and we talked about this on our pod when we had Yaron on, like was pretty annoying for me. And I like talking about what we've done. I'm really proud about what we've done. But when Yaron was interviewing me, he kept asking me about my dad. And because he thought it was really amusing that my dad was so anti it and I was so pro. And he asked me for his number, and I was like, sure, here's his number. And then he asked me again, and I said, I got to be honest with you, dude. I'm done. I'm not doing any more interviews for this. And I said, certainly, if I'm talking about my dad, I was like, I love my dad, and I'm proud of him, but I don't want a whole chapter in the book about my dad not liking Sam Hinkie and me liking him. I don't have any. And he respected that and backed off. And honestly, when you read it, it's a very small part. So I realized after I read it and going through that process, just how hard he worked on the book. I thought he did a really good job with the book. I was ready to hate it and think it was sort of like have you ever watched what's the NWA movie with Ice Cube?
Straight Outta
Straight Outta Compton.
Straight Outta Compton. So if you watch Straight Outta Compton, but you know that story, it's sort of like a boring movie because it's all very surface level. And I thought that it's what I was going to think of with the book, but then I realized he really tried to get everything out of everyone to make sure that he explored everything. And I thought he did a good job of, it's a little too soon to write the book because there's too many people who have something to lose by talking to him. And he was able to get nuggets in there, I thought, that I wouldn't have thought he would have been able to get at this point. So it was really neat for us to be in it, but overall I was glad that, and there will be a few more of these, I was glad that the first one that came out did it proper, service, that I thought the story was told in an appropriate way.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. All right, let's go back a little bit. There have been a lot of fantastic Ricky moments over the last, long time. What is a personal favorite of yours, man?
Man, there's so many. The events always get me, right? Because seeing everyone in one place being cool always makes me I get emotional about it. So the lottery parties are always cool moments because there were so many people. So when we got the number one pick, that lottery party, and it was when you watch the video of it, it doesn't even look real. It looks like
drinks flying everywhere.
Yeah, it looks like we won the Super Bowl. It looks like a Super Bowl thing. And I remember that very clearly. And it was right after, it was a month after Hinkie left. So I thought that was an emotional one for us. I remember Covington coming out at the lottery party and us being afraid that he was going to get booed because he played so poorly, and he just got this enormous ovation. Every player that has shown up at these things, you see their face afterwards, and they don't get it beforehand, but they get it afterwards, and every one of them has been whatever you need, whatever you guys need, just let me know, whatever you guys need, which has always been really neat. I thought it was neat to see Covington and Dario in Minnesota and see how touched they were that we came out and saw them. Seeing TJ in Indianapolis this past New Year's Eve was really neat too. He seemed really touched by that too. I'm sorry, I have so many of them. This year, the Providence Animal Center does this 5K in October. And we've had a team the last 2 years, and we have 130 people on the run team this year, which is half of their attendees, or a third of their attendees, which is wild. I think we raised $13,000. We've done a lot of things, and we've been able to. I think I'm proud that it has lasted as long as it's had, and people. That it seems to have meant something to people, and that we've been able to do good for people. I think that the charity, I'm much older than you guys, and I the older I get, the more it's important to me that I'm doing things for other people, that I'm leaving a mark on people that they can walk away thinking, I am better for having had that person in my life. And I think the podcast has given us an opportunity to do that for some people. Now, there's some people that fucking hate me now for some reason, but I would say that the people that feel good, the people that feel good about it are far outnumber that. And that means a lot to me that we've been able to do that. So,
Yep.
So
you live long enough to see yourself become the villain, right?
Yeah, right. All I'm trying to do, what's funny is the people. It's gotten very strange over the last few years, and I'm not surprised that as they've gotten good, it's gotten strange. But it's funny for people who have listened since the beginning. I'm no different, I hated MCW before anybody else. I've been turning on people for years. This is not anything new for me. I've always had snap judgments with people. I've always really loved some like minor people, and like I don't know. I've never been that different, but I think as the team has gotten good, people, I don't know. It's the process of it has been really weird.
I think it's I was just gonna say, I think it's like more like better as teams get better, more casual fans come in and they kind of start to form their opinion. I think you've always had your set major fan. It's just like casual fans have come in, they see it differently, and they don't really, I think, get it, to be honest.
Well, and I think I agree with that. And I also think, for the first few years of this, we were all on the same page with most things. There were little disagreements, but we were all on the same page with most things. But the moves have gotten more polarizing, right? Like, so the things that I don't like, only half the people agree with me now. And like I didn't like Butler from the very, very, very start, like from way before they even traded for him. And Mike, he'll deny this, but if you go to the podcast, he didn't want him either. Like he wanted no part of him. And then they traded for him. And like, I just didn't change my mind, and everybody else did. And like, I've always been kind of stubborn in that way. So I think it's casual fans, but I also think there's like this has been such a long time for everybody. I think there's like, it's worn on people, and they don't like, if things are bad, they really don't feel like dealing with it anymore. Like, they don't feel like knowing. There was this fight that I had with Mike in December of 2017 on the podcast about whether Colangelo was doing a good job. And I was like, well, of course he's not. And he was like aghast, and we argued over it. And I was so confused as to why he didn't see it my way. I thought it was obvious. And I remember seeing on Reddit, people were so mad at me. And I think that was the moment that I realized that that I was not going to be on the same page as everyone from now on. I would be on the same page as some people, but not on the same page as everyone. So I just try to be completely honest about what I think all the time. And I think the one thing that I've learned to change is that I don't always need to remind people of things that I don't like. Like Matisse Thybulle I like him. He's a good player, but he hasn't been good in like 2.5 months.
It's been a while.
Like, legitimately good.
That Ricky man.
Yes, but there's no sense in me saying it every podcast, because it's just going to make people mad. So I've learned, like, I will sneak it in there once every few weeks. Oh, by the way, he's not playing because he's not making shots and he's getting burned on defense. I will say it and I'll just let it go. And I think Mike has done the same thing. Mike and I think have learned to give each other a little more space. And when we disagree, it doesn't mean we have to argue about it. And I think that comes with time too.
It's so interesting how like Philly sports is its own animal. Like Eagles fans are innately always in love with the backup quarterback. And then you look at Sixers fans, they are just strictly conditioned to be divisive. There has to be something that they're divisive about on Sixers Twitter. It's just a life of itself. And it never ends. Never.
Yeah, the Twitter thing, it's a shame because a lot of, I think I always say that like part of the reason that I thought that people like me is that I respond. Like, I'm available. That's it's part of what I do. Like, I say yes and I respond and all that stuff, but it's so divisive that like it makes me unhappy. Like, everybody fights about everything. And I made one like Covington Thibault joke very early. I think when Covington was coming back, and like I didn't like notice anything, and somebody came up to me at work and they were like, "Wow." And I was like, what? And they were like, that Thibault, the Covington tweet. And I was like, what? And I looked back at it and it was just like, everyone was fighting about me. Like, not even in the mentions of it. It's like people were arguing about it. It's wild. It's a wild place. I wish people would be nicer to each other. A little bit nicer to each other. Yeah.
It's definitely a tricky place to navigate Twitter these days.
Yeah.
We want to get your opinion out there. We don't want everybody to like cancel you or ban you, it seems like, almost. Yeah,
you got to be. I always say at work, I say to the host at work, it takes like 1,000 good tweets to make people think this much better about you, but it only takes one bad tweet to make them not ever want to talk to you again.
Yeah.
And like that's tough.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to overthink anything and you don't want to filter yourself. But every time you tweet, the real question you should ask yourself before you hit the button is this worth it? Like, is it worth it? Is it worth it to fire back at this guy? Is it worth it to say this? And 40% of the time the answer is no. What am I gaining from this? So I've tried to lower I tried to just not read as much. And right now, like with all the coronavirus and politics stuff, it's just, it give you anxiety just reading it. So,
yeah. You're a big music guy. I mean, has there been any new music or artists you've discovered while you've been in kind of quarantine? I wouldn't say quarantine, but like in this new age, have you discovered any new music?
Everything's been the same for me. Who did I find? Kaylee Goldsworthy is from Philly. She's great, and she draws dogs too. I think she toured with Chuck Reagan from Hot Water Music, and she's toured with Dave Hawes from The Loved Ones. She's great. Here, hold on. I'll bring out my phone and see like what the last stuff I listened to was. See if any of it's any good, because I run every morning. So, this is a lot of old stuff. Wait, who's this? Boy Genius is
right.
4 women put out like a record, like it seems like a year and a half ago. Really, really good. Wow, this is kind of pathetic. There's so much stuff that's old. This is what happens. You stop discovering things. I'm looking at it. I already like Noah Cyrus. I love Noah Cyrus.
You listen to the
Chelsea Cutler. The Chelsea Cutler album is really good. I don't know if you've listened to that, but it's really good. And let me give you one more. What's that?
The Weeknd's new album?
I only know it's just a guy, right? The Weeknd's just like,
yeah.
Every time the songs come on, they are fine. They're good, but I never listen to them on purpose. It sort of reminds me of Ed Sheeran. Every Ed Sheeran song is good, but I never purposely put on Ed Sheeran songs. So I didn't listen to the new Weeknd album.
My buddy Harry is just like in love with it. It's always been talking about for the past like 3 days.
Is it good? Did you listen to it?
He said it's like sad. It's like kind of like Drake sad music, like the whole album.
Yeah,
that's cool. I like sad music. I'm sad, Yeah, sure. I'll give it a try. It'll be the first time I've ever put on the Weeknd on purpose. So I'll listen to it tomorrow morning when I run.
All right. Last Ricky question before we get into some Sixer shit. All right, man. I made a list of some of my top Ricky moments, and give me a few words. Give me a few words to kind of what's on the first thing that comes to your mind about these epic moments. All right, man?
Okay. All right.
Getting the top overall pick in the 2016 draft lottery.
Yeah. I can't even remember where I was. I must have been downstairs, and I usually spent the time near the DJ booth at lottery parties, because at the commercial, I would always grab the mic and talk to everyone, and I would also let the Xfinity Live people know what was going on. And so I must have been down there, but I really remember getting on the mic afterwards and screaming at everyone. Like I remember screaming, "We did it!" And then I remember doing an interview with John Gonzalez, and it was me, Mike, and Andrew Sharp. And I remember putting my hand in Andrew Sharp's face to tell him to shut up. So I remember that.
I don't really remember much from that night, but I do remember waking up the next morning and seeing my bar bill. It was not good.
Yeah. Xfinity Live's not cheap. Yeah.
It's not at all. A lot of dirty Shirleys. TJ double fisting beers at Underground Arts.
Yeah, that was great. The first live show we ever did, and I'll never forget like him coming out and his face when he saw everyone, because it was such like a ravenous, like packed tight crowd. and they were cheering so loud. Like when he walked out, you could just see it click that he knew it was safe. Because when we booked him, both his agent and a couple of beat writers were like, he doesn't really say much of anything. Like he's a nice person, but he doesn't say much of anything. And they got up there, he was cursing and
don't take me to Cleveland. I don't want to go to Cleveland.
yeah, don't want to go to fucking Cleveland is what he said. And I remember seeing his fiance, now wife, Valerie, off on the side, like aghast during the entire thing. But what a great dude, man. Took a picture with every single person there afterwards, and still appreciates us quite a bit.
The proposal and she said yes chant.
So I actually have mixed feelings about that.
Really?
I'm glad that, so I am glad that we did it. But they never got married and they are not engaged anymore.
Oh.
And like, that's okay. That happens, right? Not that happens. But there was something that always seemed fishy to me about it.
Really?
And well, so I had nothing, I didn't pick, right? We had the people register and then we sort of like randomly picked somebody. And I called the name and they walked up, and I don't want anyone to take this the wrong way, but they called the name and they walked up, and I remember two specific things. One, I've never seen them before. And like, I just thought the people who would win this would be like people that I recognize, because we've done enough events and I see enough people out to where like there's a core group of probably 500 to 700 people that I recognize when I first see them, right? So first I didn't recognize them, but then the second thing was like, they're too good looking. And he was too confident. Like he was so confident. Like he wasn't nervous at all. He took the mic from me. He knew exactly what he was going to do. And like, there's just something that fucking was really fishy. And so I talked to them a bit afterwards, and I think they asked me to marry them, like in Orlando, because they were from Orlando. That was another thing. Or they're from here, but they were living in Orlando. They came up for it. And since then, I remember I got in some dumb argument about the Sixers-Celtics series with like Alan, the guy. And because they had my phone number, and he texted me after game 1 when the Sixers lost. And he was like, that was actually a good thing. And I was like, it actually wasn't. I was like, we're in big fucking trouble. And that was the last time I ever talked to him. But I would keep tabs on their social media because they delayed their wedding. And I'd be like, well, I wonder what's going on here. And then I would see, like, I stopped seeing them on each other's Instagram. And then I started seeing another guy on Chandler's Instagram. So they are not together anymore. I wish them the best. I have no problem with Chandler, but Alan seems shady to me. That's all I'm saying. So, but it was a very neat thing. The She Said Yes chant was neat. We got a ton of publicity on it. It was a very amazing moment. From the minute I saw them, there was something wrong.
Last one, the raising of the Sam Hinkie banner. How fucking epic was that?
Yeah, so it's funny. I mentioned like the people who don't like that I disagree anymore. The guy whose idea that was, and like most of our ideas aren't our ideas. I love asking people for ideas and just doing it. You know, like a lot of our merch ideas are other people's ideas, and I don't think that's stealing. Like I ask for ideas or people suggest ideas to me, and I think that one of my skills is I can make it happen. You know, like this guy's like, you should raise a banner for Sam Hinkie, and I can make that happen. Like I can find a way to make these things happen. So, but that guy, Ryan, fucking hates me now. And I don't know, like, I think it's because I was critical of Ben Simmons, and he became one of those people that didn't know that Ben Dietrich is fucking with them. He fucking started hating me. So I don't know if he's still around or if he still tweets, but he hated me. But so it was a cool idea, right? I mean, it was a really awesome idea. And the greatest thing about Xfinity Live, and I'll give them a lot of credit, Anthony and everybody at Xfinity Live is they were down for whatever I wanted to do. And they were really good at figuring out ways to do things. So I said, I want to have a banner. I want to raise it. They figured out who could make the banner. They rigged the thing to raise it. Like they went and they tried it out. And I remember going there early as they were trying to raise it and taking video of it being raised. And I sent it to Sam Hinkie. And the only response I got was "oh boy" or something like that, but it was I think it was like a scared "oh boy," not a sarcastic "oh boy." And then raising it was awesome. I mean, we played the original Amos song when we were raising it, and that I'll never forget. It was on SportsCenter that night. And Embiid putting in his Instagram stories, saying something like "I love Philly," and then Embiid, when he was there for New Year's Eve, I think it was, I was getting text messages that he was there, and they got him to sign it on New Year's Eve. So I don't have it; it's at Xfinity Live, but it's signed by Joel.
Awesome.
I remember seeing that on the story. He was like I think he might have been like a car, or I remember somewhere dark he was signing it. I was like, oh my God, he's with the Hinkie banner.
Oh yeah, no, he was upstairs. He was in the VIP spot of Xfinity. Yeah.
Cool. All right, let's talk some Sixers, man. Do you want to lead us off back?
Yeah, so I mean, kind of the big controversy of today and the last day is rightfully said the kind of salary reductions, or well, now it's been taken away, of the kind of I think it's like above 50,000. The whole thing, it's just ridiculous. Josh Harris kind of taking away these people with money when his net worth is like $3.8 billion, and Michael Rubin, that whole. What are your thoughts on all of that?
Well, I mean, they're pretty tone deaf. Like I don't think they've ever understood how people here think. And they rely on Scott O'Neil to tell them what will work and what won't. And he's missed a few times, right? And like my sense is that that's what happened here. They just don't know. Like people that are like, you got to realize that like what he does for a living is not like managing people. Like that's not what he does. He's not a public speaker. He's not a manager. That's not what he does. It's math to him. He buys companies that are undervalued and being run poorly, and he strips them and fixes them and makes them run lean and efficiently, and then sells them. And that's what he does. And a sports team is different. You can't do that with a sports team because it's very personal to people. So, that's why Sam was perfect, because Sam spoke their language, worked for Bain Capital and understood what they did. So he was kind of perfect for them, because he was heartless in that way and he could do it. And I just don't think they get it. Like, I don't think they've ever gotten it, because truthfully, if I'm being honest, like in this time where people are getting laid off left and right, people are losing benefits. They don't know if they'll ever work again. To say to people, like just without any context, to say to people, hey, we're going to need you to take a 20% cut between now and June. It's going to end there, and you're going to keep your benefits. You're going to keep your 401k. You're going to keep your job. There are a lot of people in this country right now who would take that deal. There are a lot of people who would take that deal. So on its surface, they probably think, wow, look at all the people out of work. We're not firing anybody. That's what they think. But unfortunately, they don't think about the fact that everybody knows how rich they are. Right? And everybody knows, like, everybody's already suspicious of them. And to me, the biggest problem is that they are not a public company. They can take losses. They can have a quarter where it doesn't do well and it won't hurt the value of the franchise. Like now, a public company, a company that's on the stock exchange is in trouble, right? Because they have to worry about meeting bills, and they have to worry about showing a certain profit margin, and they have to be more careful. Or a local business who maybe isn't a publicly traded business but doesn't have that high a margin, like a small store or a restaurant, they literally can't do it, right? Here is a company like the Sixers, owned by a giant hedge fund, by three it's really Blitzer and Harris. Michael Rubin's just a minority owner, but if you consider the three of them, you're talking about like $9 billion in net worth, a team worth $2 billion that, by the way, is going to have solid cash flow again in 3 months. Like even if this goes the rest of the season, they're fine again in September or whatever it is. So I really just thought more than anything it was tone deaf, and it just showed that they are not sports owners, whether here or anywhere else. They can't be sports owners. They just don't know how to do it. And because they're so fucking clumsy, if I was the other owners, I'd want to kill them, because I bet all the other owners wanted to do the same thing.
Yeah.
And now because they were so dumb and clumsy about it, nobody can do it. And I give a ton of credit to Embiid, because I will tell you what, him offering up that $500,000 when he did was a direct fucking shot at ownership. It was a direct shot at Scott O'Neil. It was a direct shot of, I do not approve of how you're running your business, and he made them change. And that's like a LeBron kind of move, like that is a power player move. So I'm proud of him for doing it. Whoever decided, and look, I get the sense that Rubin is close to CAA, their agency. So maybe it was a combined effort to do that. But I was very excited that Embiid did that, because he really fucked with the team. I thought it was cool.
I agree with that. I mean, that was a great move by him. I mean, you've seen guys like Giannis and other NBA stars kind of step up. I mean, this was, I feel like, a different move. I mean, this was kind of trying to defy instead of standing with ownership.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, I thought it was crazy. It was awesome.
Yeah, totally. The disturbing piece of that was seeing that how, I think Woj tweeted that all the other owners were kind of seeing how the Sixers Twitter would basically respond to all that shit. So really, it's crazy, man. Just crazy. Just a bunch of Colangelos. If the season ended tomorrow, what do you expect the Sixers will do with Brett Brown, man?
They would fire him.
Yeah?
I think they would fire him. Yeah, I think like the only thing that the playoffs can do is save his job. Like I think they've wanted to fire him for 2 or 3 years now. And I think it would be their chance, because if the season ended today, ultimately the season was a disappointment. Anyone can tell you that it wasn't, but it was. Like anybody who watched these games and wanted the team to win can tell you that this season, like, for all the people on Twitter that go, oh, imagine not liking a team that there's like, this year was not fun at all. It was fucking frustrating. They were probably exciting to watch 6 times. Like there were probably 5 or 6 games this year that were really good, but the rest of them were torture. So I think because the season would have ultimately ended as a disappointment, I think he would get fired. Now, I think if they play the playoffs and they get to the finals, or even go deep in the Eastern Conference Finals, I think he could save his job. But right now, I think his job is gone.
Yeah, speaking as someone that I was a Brett Brown guy, I've always been, and that transformation this season has been really difficult for me, man. I fully agree with you, Spike. I think it's the writing's on the wall. What about you, Jack?
I mean, I kind of agree the same way. I mean, I think everybody kind of on the same boat. I mean, I love Brett. I just think he's lost the locker room, and any great coach that loses the locker room, there's really not much you can do to save it. It's a terrible thing. It sucks. It's just, I could see him stay around.
It does. How do you see the Sixers moving forward with Al Horford? Do you expect them to bite the bullet, trade him, or run it back, or hope for the best? Like, what's up with Al Horford, man?
I think there's 0 chance he's back next year.
Yeah.
I think even if they have to pay like the Horford tax of adding a first-round pick, or I think he'll be gone. Like I think that is pretty sure. The only thing that could save it again would be if they somehow beat the Bucks with Horford, and he ends up being a key piece of that, maybe. But I think the chances of Horford being back are probably like less than 5%.
Yeah, man. All this Al Horford shit, man, I just keep going back to like Markelle Fultz, man. Just that potential of being like a 3-level scorer, like Bradley Beal, just kills me every time. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Bradley Beal is a fucking really good shooter, and Markelle Fultz was never a really good shooter. Now, like, man, it really goes back to that trade. I mean, you can go back to the original Redick signing, just signing him for too much. It was fine to have him on the team, obviously a good player, but like that's when you sort of saw that Colangelo was like playing a lot of checkers playing rather than chess. And that trade, he just got duped, and then he choked afterwards. Yeah, it's a shame. It all goes back to that, because that set everything else off.
Financially,
a chain reaction,
Yep.
Yeah.
Last question, Jack. You got it, bud?
All right. So, if going forward, if the season were to start up again, what do you think would be the best starting five for the team moving forward?
Assuming everyone's healthy?
Yeah.
I think you probably go Milton, Richardson, Harris, Simmons, Embiid.
Yep.
I think that's probably what you do. I think there are certain teams they could play that they could start Horford against, like depending on what Toronto did. Toronto, maybe you start Horford if they're starting Gasol and Ibaka for some reason. I think you can get away with it. But Boston, I think you have to start Milton. Who else might they play? Miami, I think you start Milton. But Milwaukee and Toronto, I don't know. So that would be, I would go Milton, Richardson, Simmons, Harris, Embiid.
Couldn't agree more, man. You just stole the words out of my mouth, man. You gotta develop a talent around Ben and Joel, and Shake is one of those few playmakers that they got. He can stretch the court, he can cut to the basket, he can defend. Like, that's what they need. What about you, Jack?
I like Shake, but I just think he needs to come up. You need something off the bench. I would say maybe either if Matisse was to go in the four, that same group of guys is just putting either Matisse or putting in Alec Burks. I think trying to fit one of those guys in, or Furkan, I think kind of be your best bet there, because I feel like Shake has kind of molded himself into being a backup point guard position. So I think you could really use him off the bench and solidify that bench unit with him.
I just think they need a creator on the floor with Simmons. Like I don't think and that's where Furkan doesn't really work and Thibault doesn't really work, and Burks can score, but he doesn't create for anybody else. I think Burks is probably the better spark plug off the bench than Shake. I think Shake's a better fit with Simmons, but who knows? God, if they even play basketball again, that would be nice. So, wishful thinking, I guess, at this point.
Totally. Yeah, dude, thank you so much for joining, man. Make sure you check out.
Sure.
Dude, it's a fucking honor, man. Make sure you check out the live Ricky stream coming up. Is that next Sunday, right?
This coming Sunday, March 29th at noon. If you go to rightsrickysanchez.com, it's right on the front page.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much, Spike. Thank you for Jack, for Spike, for myself. Thanks for watching, guys. Stay awesome.
See you guys.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Sixers win it! Wow! Oh, man, Embiid just posterized Russell Westbrook.
You love the Philadelphia Eagles. Let me